Hey guys, it's Abby here. I'm going to be working with the T862++ reworking station, and we're going to be replacing a Qf601 transistor. You see I've plugged in the machine and I turned the power button on in the back, the power switch in the back. I have set my hot plate, which is the far left side. I've flipped that switch on and pressed the blue button, so it will be powering up to 200 degrees. I fast forwarded this part, so it took about 3 minutes for it to heat up, which is pretty fast. So we're gonna let that heat up. All my other switches are still off, so you just see the soldering heats up a little bit, but I don't use that solder gun. So here's the 3 minutes is up that it heats up. So I'm gonna show you. I'm working with an L1800 main board here. We took the Qf601 transistor off for another board to use, so here's why it's off, and I'm going to be replacing it. So that's where it would be placed on the board. Here's what a Qf601 transistor would look like if it was brand spanking new, and I would be taking it out to replace on a board that we would have here, or a repair board that I'd be working on. So it's not the smallest component or, transistor fuse that I'd be working with, but it's still pretty small, so you don't want to lose it. Here's what it looks up close, and here I'll show you the main board where I'd be placing it. So again, we can see that's what the transistor looks like, where it would go on the board. And I want to protect my board for when it goes on to the reworking station, because there is some high heat. We have our heating board under there, like our one that we set to 200. We're going to have our high heat that's going to actually solder on our transistor onto the board. And so when it does heat up, it can loosen up other components and stuff on the board, and I don't want any of my board to get fried or damaged anyway. So I really just want to use this aluminum foil, tin foil, to focus my heat in the one area that I want it to be focused on. Okie dokie. Now next we're going to use this soldering paste. It has a melting point of 138 degrees Celsius, so we have plenty of heat on our side working with us to use this soldering paste. And I have a needle on the end of my soldering paste, so I can squeeze a bit out, and I'm just going to tap it along the silver areas that I would see in this position where I need to put my transistor. I do not need a buttload or a crap ton of soldering paste, and a small bit goes a pretty good way. So I might, if I have a little bit like clumped up extra from old time, I might just wipe it off a little bit on a paper towel or a napkin. But I'll just move my board around a little bit and tap my needle on there, so I can see that I have that gray, gritty silver sparkly, because I look for that sparkly, gritty soldering paste to be on there enough to melt at the melting point, and to hold on to the transistor once it melts so it doesn't fall off. But again, you don't need a whole bunch to be slathered on under there or gooped up under there. So once I have my soldering paste under, that's where I'm going to use my tweezers, and I'm going to put my transistor on top of the soldering paste, but I want to line it up, obviously where it would have gone in the past if I just took one off and I'm replacing it again with a brand new one that's working. Say I take one off, I test it tests bad, it doesn't test as what it should be testing, I can take it off and I'll put a brand new one on in the exact spot. If I don't, I just want to test it, make sure it works, and I want to line it up as it's supposed to go, because I could have multiple chances to take it off, but it's nice when you get it in one go. So this machine comes, I don't know what we would call these. I guess I could call this like a holder, or kind of like a clamp, but it's this thing that holds the board up a bit, so it doesn't always necessarily sit right on the hot plate. Also, if the board can get a little bit hot, so I guess you can hold these metal tongs-ish sort of things at the end, but it does go in and out depending on how big your board is, if you want your board to like sit right down in there. But with this L1800, it has to sit a little bit on top just because of the transistors in the back. So I sit it on top, and I'm going to move this heating lamp over it, and I'll move it down a bit. Use eye protection here. I use eye protection. Put this screen down, this protective screen. Put your protective eye gear on, and we'll flip this high light on, and it's going to put high beam, high heat onto the Qf601 that I just placed. And this light itself goes on for about 7 seconds, and then it cuts off. And if you do not turn that switch off on this second middle area, it will go back on. It cuts off for about 3 or 4 seconds, goes back on. So when that 7 seconds is off, cut it off if you want to take your board off and not worry about that light coming back on. So here I am taking my tinfoil off, and we're going to look and see it's stuck on there really nice. I can hit it with the tweezers and it's not going to pop off. I rub my fingers over it multiple times, and we have a new transistor in our Qf601 spot. So now I'm turning off all of my on switches in the front, and before I turn the back switch off, I'm just going to let all of my when I say all of my, I really mean my first hot plate to come back down in temperature before I turn off the whole thing. And now here I'm just wanting to test out my main board to make sure that it actually is going to work. I did use my multimeter to test everything a little bit as a test run, but I still would love to test to make sure that the L1800 printer is actually going to come on. So we screwed the main board in, and now I sped this part up for y'all, but I plugged in all the cables in the back. I'm getting all the FFC cables in place, and then we will power on the printer to check. Okay, plug the USB in and the power cable, put the power switch on in the back, and we'll put the power on in the front. And I hear it power up, and I see that the carriage goes back and forth, and everything sounds good. So we hope you enjoyed this video. You can find more of us at bchtechnologies.com, and you can visit us here locally in Greensboro, North Carolina. Happy printing, everyone.